Mr. Bhajanka, I want to start with you first because, the numbers in the previous quarter were obviously under a bit of pressure. We saw a huge drop in the sale of plywoods, laminates, MDF, etc. because of the lockdown. But how is the situation now? Is there any fresh demand? Is it pent-up demand? And can you give us some numbers as well?
So you see, I think last quarter in some segments we did well. MDF, I think, grew, in fact. Plywood and laminates, of course, because Q4, the last half of a month was wiped out, which is practically 50%, or 1/6 of your sale is wiped out. So numbers will be a little under pressure. Having said that, we were expecting demand to recover to about 20-25% in May, to maybe 50% in June. This was, a pessimistic outlook which we had in April, but we have exceeded both those numbers. Going forward, I think on a business sense, the worst is behind us. In the building material industry, one of the most challenging factors is migrant labor, because a lot of labor is based in certain pockets. UP, Bihar is a major source for labor for us. So I think once that labor starts getting back to the market, things will only improve. So I don't think that in the building material sector, particularly, pent-up demand is even if it was there, I don't see any reason for the demand to drop now. I think it's going to look up and up.
Could you tell us what has been the trends? I mean, July is too short a time period, but can you tell us what is the situation in the first 7-8 days of July? Are things holding up or not really? I mean, it just goes back to the point that Sonia made, which is pent-up demand. People are filling up the inventory, but I guess one should focus on secondary sales, right? I mean, is that happening now in July?
So 100% secondary sale is there. I think the quantum of stocking in our industry over the past couple of years actually has come down substantially. That could be due to supply chain improvements as well. Having said that, it's a very dynamic situation. You see, last month for the first 15-20 days, Chennai did phenomenally. Then suddenly there was a shutdown. Now Guwahati is under lockdown. There is a constant dynamic situation that is evolving in the market week after week. It's daily actually. But having said that, yes, there are shoots. We are seeing green shoots of revival. We are seeing things picking up. And like I said, I think July is going to be better than June. And hopefully August will be better than July, and so on and so forth.
I mean, I think you're the 10th person that's telling us that, month on month, there's a big recovery. So it's good to hear that. But we have Ayush Bagla, the Executive Director of Cera Sanitary Ware, who joins in as well. Mr. Bagla, what are your thoughts? Are you seeing any pickup in terms of, tiles, faucets, sanitary ware? Because I do know that, I mean, from personal experience, that I had so many things to buy, but I couldn't because of the lockdown. Is it only pent-up demand, or are you seeing fresh, generation of demand as well?
So April again was a washout completely, and May we achieved about 50-55% of what we achieved in the corresponding period last year. In June again we saw a huge fillip in demand, and our top line was about 80-85% of last year. July first 10 days have been higher than June, and the dramatic shift is in the nature of demand. So a typical faucet price, if you compute it at about 2,500 rupees, the touchless products are between 9,000 and 12,000 rupees each. And these touchless products, not only do they have a completely different margin profile, but the demand is 60x of last year. And the pricing profile is 6x of last year. So as a result, what you've seen at the shop floor, we restarted our factory on 5th May. And by mid-June, we had absorbed the entire 1,800 permanent labor force. From mid-June, we are running the entire 3-shift, 24-hour factory operations, and at 80% of rated capacity. The entire inventory buildup that had taken place in end March has been completely absorbed. And bulk of this inventory was of high margin and expensive products. So there's a flight to quality by the consumer, there's a flight to better brands, and there's a flight to more expensive products.
Yeah. Mr. Bagla, is this, so that's heartening to hear, but is this largely demand from tier 2, tier 3 town cities for these bathroom products, or this is across metros as well?
It's all tier 2 and tier 3. And in any case, for a company like Cera Sanitary, where 70% of our sales were tier 2 and tier 3 historically. And that number would have further increased now because bulk of the markets in tier 1 towns continue to be closed. Even within that demand, there's a composition change. So more than 80% of our sales are now currently through dealers, and only 20% is direct project sales. And this project sales is all national level brands. So the consumer wants to rely on national level developers and non-mom and pop or local developers. And that's a very welcome change. We not only have to negotiate for larger projects at a single window, but more organized developers will provide a greater satisfaction and confidence to the consumer on project completion. And that's great news for us. For us, what we do is tell project developers that please take products from us in a just-in-time basis. We'll manage the inventory for you. We'll give you shorter billing cycles and shorter delivery periods. So the sector is now reviving itself. There's more efficiencies in the entire supply chain. And demand revival is happening across all levels. So May, June were great months, July onward. And this entire sector is a very interest-sensitive sector. So home loans, which were 9.5%, 10%, is now sub 7%. And even a 50 basis point change in home loan rates triggers a huge demand for affordable housing. And that's where 70-75% of the current WIP is.
Okay, I just wanted to get one last word in from Keshav because we're running out of time. Keshav, any thoughts from your end on how consumer preferences are changing?
See, from what we have seen, again, like what Ayush said, the demand for branded products, I think, is going to pick up faster than the demand for local or unorganized products. And we have seen this in consumer preferences. Customers who are 50-50, who are borderline between an unorganized product and an organized product because of the differential of price, now are showing more of a tendency to move towards organized products. If this is a trend in the long term, then this is going to be extremely beneficial for companies such as ourselves.